mean for him in terms of having to adjust?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what a year makes, right? This time last year, you know, he was barely a part of people's scouting report the year before. Now this year, he'll be one of the focal guys. But I think Mo has done a tremendous job of having a really good, productive summer for himself, both individually with the national team and with our team. And so, you know, it's just another mindset that you have to get into. You know, it's almost kind of going from being Robin to Batman. You know, and so I think he's up for the task of kind of being one of the guys, being a focal point of everybody's scouting report, and he's going to have to play well for us to have a good season.
Talk about Isaiah's progress since you've had him.
Yeah, Zay has done a good job of just really trying to get caught up to the pace of playing basketball at this level. You know, he still has a lot of work to do, but athletically, skill-wise, you know, I think he's ahead of the normal freshman curve, but you know, still has to continue to work to get himself familiar with the offense, with the defensive schemes, because there's a lot of things that we do at this level that aren't taught at the high school level. So not only for him, but for the other freshmen, I think that's the biggest learning curve that they're going through right now.
He's probably going to have to play, it sounds like, at the 4 for you. So is that added pressure on him? How's he handling that?
I would hope it's not added pressure for him.
Yeah.
You know, we recruited him with the expectation of being able to come in and contribute. At the time, nobody knew that DJ was going to have the year and the opportunities that he had after the season. So, you know, it's just kind of one of those things. His timetable got sped up. Duncan's done a tremendous job of being a great leader for him and bringing him along. And I think that, you know, as Isaiah gets game minutes under his belt, I think, you know, you'll see his progression go forward from there.
We're going to see a bigger role from Duncan Robinson this year. Outside of his shooting, where do you expect to see the biggest improvements from him?
Well, I think naturally his leadership. You know, he's one of the few guys with 6 new guys in the program. You know, he's one of the few guys who have been through the paces. So, you know, obviously Duncan can stretch the floor with his shooting ability. You know, he continues to work on and emerge from a defensive standpoint. And so, you know, I just think him being really a fifth-year guy, he's just going to have to use that experience to help carry us along throughout the season.
Who's got the edge right now among the backup 5s, and what kind of progression have you seen out of Davis and Teskey?
You know, I think they're both progressing at a pretty steady pace. You know, depending on what day it is, that answer will change. I think that John, certainly his confidence level has picked up since last year, and I think the guys have done a really good job of really fueling that for him, because, you know, he's skilled. He's 7'1", and that's you know, his size is something you can't teach, and I think that he's really embracing that part of himself. And you know, he has a new name this year. We call him Big Nasty, and so hopefully, if he embraces that nastiness, that will allow his game to take another step forward. And Austin as well. You know, they're both, you know, really challenge them to not run at the same pace. Like, somebody's going to have to, like, try to separate themselves from the other one in terms of just of trying to have that playing time. But I think that that's a good challenge for them, a good mindset for them to be in, because at the end of the day, it'll probably be some combination of both of them early, and then as the year goes along, we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Coach.
It's Big Nasty to get rid of the big sleep stigma.
Yeah, you know, last year was nightmare, you know, because we want him awake, right? And this year is Big Nasty, and so. But Austin too, you know, we've kind of renamed him a little bit. Now it went from Big Country, now it's Bull, because he's just a strong physical guy, you know. And I just think really both of those guys really have to embrace some form of, like, alter ego, you know, when they're out there on the floor, because they're really good kids. They're quiet kids by nature, but we need them to really play with a more physical nature this season for them to really be productive for us.
What was that first step that Austin took next year to get him to another level? Was that part of it, or was it just understanding the game more that really elevated him?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I mean, last year, obviously, Austin redshirted, and so by being on the scout team, you get a lot more reps in practice where, Teskey didn't get as many reps because he's playing behind Mo, he's playing behind Mark, and so I think that definitely helped Austin going into the season. And then too, and we've talked about it with those guys, physically they've done a really good job of working hard in the weight room with Sandman, but sometimes you still got to do some mental training with those guys, and I think that's the next step for them, as nothing different than what DJ and Mo had to go through last year.
What do you think that biggest transition is from the scout team to getting the normal reps?
You're constantly under the watchful eye of the big cheese, and so on the scout team, you I don't want to say you can hide out, but so much of the emphasis is on developing the players and watching how the offensive defensive flow with the guys that are playing on a nightly basis that you could kind of overlook to some degree what's going on with some of the scout team, because although if you remember at the end of the season, Coach, was really fond of the progression that Austin was making, and now, you get a full-time eye watching him all the time, which is good for him because, he has to stay sharp. He has to make that next progression going into this year.
Yeah, it seems like the coach was just saying the mental difference, I guess, is kind of the bigger part, because you can show all the talent, on the scout team and then make that transition. It's kind of mentally staying in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like doing individual workouts and working on the post moves. But it's not until you get into the trenches of going one-on-one, two-on-two, or live action where you really be able to develop, all right, what am I feeling comfortable with? Which one of these moves really work? And so it's kind of like, you're going from 5-on-0 to 5-on-5, and so that mentality, he has to now develop a comfort level of being on, the main squad, getting game reps underneath his belt. Because again, and it's all those, 6 new guys, the thing that's lacking is that game experience. And so, I think that this group is certainly driven enough and competitive enough to get there, and they just have to be patient and allow the process to happen for them.
Is that the biggest thing, patience, I guess, compared to last year, just working with this group, knowing they're a little bit more behind last year's guys?
Yeah, certainly. And me included, walking into last year's situation, I think Coach, me and Billy were like the new additions to the team along with the freshmen. In last year's team, you had so much veteran leadership and so much veteran experience on the floor that we were able to just move business as usual. And I think Coach Beilein has done an unbelievable job of really understanding who this team is and really taking the time to teach the nuances of the game and really slow down. And I think ultimately it's helped not just the new guys, but even the returner guys in Ibby and X and JT and Austin, and even to some degree Charles, because all of those guys are gonna have to be in a position to help us this season.
So year 2 of Saddi Washington at Michigan, Coach Beilein said he's kind of giving you carte blanche. Are you noticing, are you feeling that he's giving you more responsibility, more deference, if you will?
Well, certainly Coach B and I were lockstep this summer, when we had all the transition with the program. And, it's natural position, for me, because I had a lot of the same responsibilities when I was at Oakland. And so, I guess being a year-and-a-half veteran, if you should say, on the staff. But, both Dre and Yak have done a great job of immersing themselves into our program and into our culture, and they've been great additions to the program. And so, it's I think what happened this summer with all the turnaround, like everybody in that hallway stepped their game up to another level. And this is Michigan. That's the expectation. You got a great group of people working in this program. And I think that's why Coach Beilein can really focus on the big picture, because he knows, everybody is handling the day-to-day and some of the detailed stuff that he doesn't have to bog himself down with.
So you're in a unique position to kind of compare this year to last as far as, concepts with Billy defensively, the concepts with Yak, and then also emphasis. I mean, Coach Beeline, I remember last year talked about spending a lot of time to start the year working on defense. How does this compare to last year, and how does what you guys were doing defensively last year compare to what you're going to do this year?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities. Some new terminology that Yak has than what we did differently last year, but a lot of similar concepts. I certainly don't think that we're trying to reinvent the wheel here defensively. You still, the beauty of having the guys in the summer and now, we're able to build a good foundation, and hopefully that foundation over the course of the season will be able to grow from that. So I think this is, where we're at really in the foundational phase of reestablishing what we learned last year, new from Billy, and then, absorbing some of the new stuff that Coach Yak has been able to bring to the table.
Can you talk about that Ohio State game where somewhat Michigan hit bottom, and then 3 days later you blow out Michigan State, your dad's alma mater? I mean, talk about what was that button that was pushed, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you get to a point where your back is against the wall and there's no way to move but forward, right? And so I think that our team had really gotten to the point where we just collectively said, you know what, enough is enough. Like, if we're going to turn this season around, if we're going to put ourselves in position to try to make the NCAA tournament, it has to be now. Like, there are no more excuses, right? We have to bounce back, because nobody's going to feel sorry for us. And I think, the Michigan State game following that was like the perfect game for us, because not only had we just lost to them a week before, but it being the rivalry game, it was a perfect opportunity for us to really make a statement for ourselves. It really was an opportunity to turn the season around and just charge forward with a lot of confidence.
Derek, was that when his leadership went up quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, it really had to. I mean, I think that he really had to face himself in the mirror and say, look, this is my last go-around. I don't want to go out on a low note, and that's when he became Batman for us. Like, you could just see his transformation happen before your eyes, and I mean, he was arguably the best point guard in the country from that point on.
Saddi, and kind of piggybacking off of that, I was going that same direction. How much new team, Yak's new here? How much though of that street fight? I remember John talking last year, street fight. That was kind of the mantra. How much of that sticks around? Is it more of a program thing, or is it more of the players that particular year kind of thing?
No, I mean, just in terms of Yak has a lot of the same energy level as Billy did. But I would say actually collectively that this group is more competitive than last year's group. And I think some of that has to do with last year's group. It appeared anyway that, the position, everything was kind of slotted. You kind of knew who was going to play, what the rotation was going to be. With this year, I mean, it's a lot of spots open for grab, just in terms of, the depth of this team allows for iron to sharpen iron. And so there really aren't very many days for guys to take off, because the next guy behind you or beside you, or however you want to look at it, has the opportunity to really jump over the top of you. So I think from that regard, it's a very good thing for the program to have such a competitive nature within the group.
How much different is this team offensively when you got Duncan at the 4 compared to Isaiah, or do you ask him to do similar things?
No, I mean, they're different. I mean, obviously Duncan is a high-level shooter.
Yep.
Isaiah is solid, not to the level of Duncan by any means, but Isaiah has the opportunity to guard a variety of positions, as well as probably rebound at a higher level. So it's just kind of one of those things that I think they'll really do a good job of kind of playing off of each other, and sometimes the game and the matchups will dictate the rotation there. But I know that both kids are motivated very much so to contribute in a major way for the program. And Duncan, again, I mean, you need that senior leadership. He's been through the paces. He knows what's coming. And there's value to that because now he can speak to, the younger guys and the new guys in terms of as the season evolves of where we've been and where we're going to. And, I mean, last year's season was a perfect example of that because, again, a Coach Beeline team is like a good pot of gumbo. You put the ingredients together and just let them stew. And then by the time the season is, by the time you get midway through the season, you got a very good meal there. And so, when guys are getting anxious or frustrated with playing time or their own individual play, I think that those senior leaders can really step up from that standpoint. But hey, we've been here before. Like, we might have to pick it up, but it's going to come together.
What did Mo primarily focus on this summer? And have you seen